Hello there again, my good YouTubers. This should be recording. I'm sorry I haven't made a video for quite a while, but life goes on. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about today is the all-important actual emerge in Gentoo. What we have is we've spoke about the package use, we've spoke about the package keywords and all of the configuration commands and the make.config. Now is the all-important actual emerge program that we use in the terminal to actually install applications and compile the source code in the right places on the system. So the best resource that we can go to really regarding emerge, which you should probably put in your toolbar bookmarks so you can constantly go back to it while you're using Gentoo and the emerge package manager, is so you can constantly get reference to what they mean and so on and so forth as you are sort of learning your way through managing your software and portage and applications that are installed on the system. And the best resource for this is actually the manual page of emerge. So just doing a Google search for man page emerge should generally bring this page up that you see here, which gives you the syntax layouts, including the various options that are available. Of course, there is the other simpler, laziest way. If you don't go to a web page or don't want to go to a web page, you can basically just type emerge and then basically help. And in this one, I'm going to be talking to you about the differences between putting the options into emerge with either a single hyphen or a double hyphen. So we'll start with that very briefly so you can get a good idea. And as you can see on the screen, most of these here actually have a double hyphen before them. Now that is because they're actually typed out. For instance, the new use, which basically means to scan your make.config for new use flags. So you've changed a use flag in your make.config, or you've changed a use flag in package.use, as we've also covered in previous videos. You would actually put this as a parameter or option to here and go new use, and then you would put at world, for instance. Now, very briefly, with this, when we put at world, we also have at system, which is pretty self-explanatory. System basically means that emerge is going to look for new use flags and search the entire rsync of portage, as we call it, which is the list of packages that are available for installation, download, and so on and so forth, but only for the system part of the application. So everything that's required by the system, such as bash or the terminal areas, or things like OpenRC or systemd, whichever you use, whichever you prefer. I'm not going to go into the arguments between OpenRC and systemd in this video, but all of the elements that are required to actually get the basic system up and running. And what we consider to be the basic system is to the kernel to fully boot, all of the USB devices, sound card, things like this are all running and effectively booted and running and in a workable, usable state by any application that wishes to use it. And you actually have a terminal where you can type commands and the system will do what you want it to do. Run Apache or run a server, whatever it is that you want the system to do. That is basically the definition of system, or what you would be updating in after the at in this command. Furthermore, we have world, and world is fairly self-explanatory. This basically means that it is everything. Every single application that is installed on your system, and every application that you wish to install on your system based on your use flags and parameters set through package keywords, which you've unmasked through that to your architecture, and so on and so forth. So world is for absolutely everything, applications as well as system, where system is just the system. And obviously, as you can see with some of the options here that have came up by just putting hyphen help, you have the areas where you can have the options. You've got ask, skip first, many different areas here, but you've got the options, the action that you want to take. Then you've got either you want to take that action on system, or you want to take that action on the whole system, the whole of your software on your computer, which is world. So these are the two very important things that you must note if you want to rebuild just the system, or you want to rebuild absolutely everything in any case that you do. Now, moving back to the fact that we have one hyphen or two hyphen. One hyphen would basically be the abbreviation, and it's as simple as this. So where we have two hyphens and we had the new use to search for new use flags, or if we wanted it to prompt us to say, would you like to continue or not, we would use ask, which is simply to ask us, do we want to continue or do not want to continue. If we were to abbreviate this, we would just use the one hyphen, and for new use we would use a capital N, and for ask we would use a lower caps A. So that basically is saying use the new use flags if you've changed any or whatever they may be, and ask us whether we want to continue. So a typical world update to your system after you've done sync, because strangely enough you when you do your sync, which would be like this would pull sync, that's all you would put in. This would pull down the latest updated bleeding edge snapshot of portage to the minute as you sync that. So you would have emerge hyphen sync. That would basically sync your entire portage tree. And as you can see in the help here, we have the same thing. You can either use sync, you can therefore pull down all metadata of the portage, or you could pull down the info, which pulls down your info. The most common one that we're generally using here, and we're going to talk about, which is going to get you started, get your systems installed and keep your systems up to date, is sync. So once you run sync, it will pull down all the updated packages, version numbers, everything that's moved from unstable to stable, everything that has been marked stable either in AMD 64 architecture or x86 architecture, or even ARM architecture, whatever it is that you're building the system to run on. This will update it. Once you've done that, the most common area where we abbreviate is A, which is to ask, V, which is actually meaning to verbose the output, so therefore it'll give us plenty of detail on what packages are to be installed, where they're going to be installed, whether they are fetch restricted, blocked packages, etc., etc. Very useful to get further information if you're trying to diagnose a dependency to packages that are failing to build, or blocked or circular dependencies, which is for another video another time, because circular dependencies can be incredibly annoying and can lead to certain levels of complexity in getting a program to install, compile, or even work. So for now, we just got to understand that the lowercase v is to output verbose, so we get much more information printed out on the screen once Emerge searches and deals with the packages installed and what needs to be installed. The further area that we need to look at with telling Emerge what to do is where we look at whether we want to update or install something or reinstall something. As you see here, we've got reinstall, which again we can have an abbreviation of the lowercase r and so on and so forth. We have all sorts of different other options, which is like update, which is the one that generally you're going to be using a lot. So we're going to cover the update, and the update abbreviation for is just obviously the lowercase u. As we mentioned earlier, or just briefly, we have the capital N, which is for the new use flags, to search for any new use flags or use flags that you've updated in your system. Even if you haven't updated your use flags, it's always good to use the capital N anyway. All it'll do is search and go, oh, we've got no new use flags, and Bob's your uncle. It won't harm it basically in any way, shape or form. The next option is a capital D. Now, the capital D basically indicates this here, which in its double, as in the double hyphen, which is in its fully spelt form, is deep, D-E-E-P. What this does is exactly what it says. It will search all your packages on your system deep. It won't just search the top ones that's been updated or whatever. It will search system, the world, everything, depending on which option you use, whether it be at system or whether it be at world, whichever. Now if it's at world, the Emerge will go deep into the system and search every single package installed, including any new use flags, etc., whatever you've got set, and basically output whatever it is that you want to do. And in our case here, we obviously have A for asking us, V for the verbose to give us the full output, U, which stands for update, because we want to update the system if there's any available updated packages to update the system as well. New use flags, so if we've added new use flags, it should install the new packages to the new options and parameters that we want a program to run with, or the whole system to run with, whether it be systemd, or whether it be OpenRC, or whether it be udev, whether it be hot plugins, and so on and so forth. So that's the news flag. And then D, which is the deep, so it will search very deep into the system to analyze what we need to install. And obviously at the end we put world, which basically means everything. So this is the effectively update your entire system command in one string. Now the problem, to just talk about the double hyphens when we put in double hyphens, this can be tedious. The reason we use the abbreviations is because it's quick. If we wanted to put the same thing in, we would have to do ask, then we would have to do another double hyphen, because there's no way we could put ask and then update here like this. It's just not going to work. So we have to put a space, double hyphen, then we have to type update, then we have to do another hyphen, and we have to type we have to type new use like this, and so on and so forth, including double hyphen deep like this, and so on and so forth, which would give us the entire command. And then obviously at the end we would type world. Now that obviously makes the command much more longer, much more lengthier to type. If you've already typed it recently, obviously you can use your page up and page down to jump through previous remembered histories in the command line. But this it's just easier if we literally just type this with the abbreviated terms, which is A, V for verbose, U, N, D, like this. So basically the whole same thing there, such as that. And obviously, as I say, I didn't type out the verbose one, so I apologise for that. But just so you know that obviously that's how it works. So that is generally everything you need to know about the emerge and how to use it to get started. So that is your getting started with emerge. Now emerge has many other powerful features to handle your system. One of the powerful features is when we actually have to, well, let's talk about it now, which is actually uninstalling something. Now you'd think, well, uninstalling would probably be like, let's say, a capital U, which is not the case. That could be confused obviously with update and so on and so forth. So we use a capital C. So capital C is used for uninstalling an application. And let's say, for instance, I wanted to uninstall GIMP. I'm not going to, because I don't want to uninstall GIMP. But this would be the command I would use to uninstall GIMP. And any application that you want on that you've got on your system already installed and you want to remove, this is what you would use. You literally use emerge-C, capital C that is, and then the followed by the program name, whatever it is. The last thing you would want to technically be doing is emerge-C at world. I mean, that would be a stupid command to do. That would basically be uninstalling absolutely everything on your system, and would probably fail, to be perfectly honest with you, because it would just crash the system as such. But this is the basic concept. So -C, a lot of this, as you go to the man page, you can actually see that you've got many different areas where you've got the actions. You've got check news clean, config dep clean, which is the clean dependencies which we need to do, which I'll talk about in a moment, and we have resume, which is, again, we'll talk about in a moment. So there's many powerful factors here. This is the unmerge, as you can see here, the actual double hyphen followed by its actual writings of unmerge is the equivalent of the single hyphen capital C, which is uninstalling an application. Again, there's far more of the details that you can find on each one here. The capital V actually delivers the version, as you can see here. Rather than being verbose, it delivers the version, hence the difference between the lower caps V and the higher caps V. So there's clear differences between the case sensitivity of these things. You also have other elements where you can add accept properties, accept restrictions, and so on and so forth, which can be put in your make config file just as much as they can be put on the command line as an option in front of emerge, which is very handy because sometimes, and I will quickly display this, sometimes you will want to install a package, so you'll be A and V. So you'll be asking yes or no at the installation, V for verbose, and then you'd want, let's say for instance, to install GIMP. But what you'd want is a use flag custom only to that, but you don't want to just add that into your package use or your make.config. You want to try it out. You're experimenting to try and fix something or whatever it is. In that case, what we do is we type use followed by an equal sign with a hyphen, and then we put in the use flag. Let's say for instance we want to minus udev. Okay, now I wouldn't advise to do that. This is just an example, but you would put this use equals in the hyphens minus udev and then emerge the package. What that's going to do is that's going to build the package without the udev option if that use flag is relevant to the package that you're going to install. So that can be just put in straight on the command line rather than actually have permanent in your make.config or package use. So as you can see, you can add a multitude of different options around the command line interface of your package maintainer of emerge. Other things which are, in fact that's a good one to pop up on the screen here. We've got the empty tree. Now that's a good one. It's not necessarily the most documented option or action from emerge, but what this empty tree means is it ignores what you've currently got installed and it treats the system as nothing's installed on the system. So if I did, let's say for instance, whoopsie daisies, that was the wrong backspace, although I was in the wrong window. If I did, let's say for instance this, emerge dash dash, or let's just put the abbreviation, which is E. Okay, even if I put AV in the front, okay, so I've got AV and E, which stands for empty tree, and then I put out world. Alright, now what that's telling Emerge to do is consider the entire world portage tree empty. So nothing's installed on the system. It'll disregard what's installed on the system, and this will rebuild every single application on your computer system that you're running with Gentoo. It will completely rebuild everything. Sort of like a reinstallation, if you want to put it that way. Instead of formatting the hard drive, you can just rebuild absolutely everything and overwrite every single application that has ever been installed on your computer. And this is exactly what the Emerge AVE world will do. It would take a long time, you know, logically, as it does, because you're compiling absolutely everything. But this is if you get into a really sticky mess and you mess things up and you really can't figure out what it is that you've either uninstalled or broken or what's going on, you can wipe out the package use flags that you don't want and the masked packages or unmasked packages, and basically rebuild the system with a completely totally empty tree if you really want to do that. It's kind of like the ultimate insane option to completely rebuild your system. So this is exactly what the empty tree means. Now, as we were discussing, we had the resume commands, which were here. We have the resume and we also have search. Now search is exactly what it is. If you want to search for a package, let's say for instance if we put A and V as verbose and we wanted to search for let's say GIMP, but we wanted to put a search in there. If we put an S on the end, let's actually see what happens. We're actually going to search for the GIMP in the portage tree at the moment, and that's what we've done. So we've put everything in here and it's searched for everything that has got GIMP in its name. So we've got GIMP Lens Fun, GIMP LQR, we've got the GIMP Resynthesizer, we've got obviously a GIMP S there, which is the Great Internet Mersenne Prime Search. We've got the GIMP help documents, we've got the GIMP program itself, the GIMP arrow brushes, so on and so forth. So we can search for through the portage tree for everything containing those GIMPs, and we can output it in a verbose matter. You know, as you quite noticed, as I say, it didn't actually ask me anything, so it ignored the A. So as you can see in this situation, putting A there is, you know, immaterial. You know, it's not something that is of any importance. And you can also see that, you know, certain things here like the GIMP help is not installed. I have got the version of GIMP 2.8.10 R1 installed. You can also see that the GIMP GMIC here is masked and not installed. And so on and so forth, and you can look down the list and it gives you the you know, the appropriate information that you've requested. Emerge resume. Now this is a thing. I can't get this to work at the moment because I haven't actually done. If I do an update, and I have to explain this, if I do an update AVU and then ND at world, okay, and one of the, let's say for instance 30 packages come up, hypothetically speaking, 30 packages of the update. Nothing's going to come up on here at the moment because unfortunately my system's up to date. But if 30 packages, new packages, were to come up and it stopped, the compilation stopped at package 20, hypothetically speaking, because package 20, you know, had a problem. Its version number was wrong, or it had, you know, somebody made a mistake in the code, or it can't find a dependency, which is usually most of the cases. Sometimes what happens is it'll look for, let's say, a version of Python, and it's got the wrong version of Python, let's say 2.6 and 2 instead of 2.7, and it wants 2.7, or even if it wants 3.3. So you got to sort of fix that so that you can resolve the dependency for that application to run on that version of Python. I know Blender is very it complains a lot. It needs the correct versions of Python and Perl and so on and so forth to run. So you've got to get these things right, and it would break on that. So you go on, you fix the problem, and you install the correct version of Python, but you don't want to start the entire rebuild process from the beginning again so that you build all of the 30 packages. You want to start from the package that it stopped on. That is where we use emerge resume, and we can do the resume either by the small r like I mentioned to you earlier, or 2 hyphens. Remember, 2 hyphens when you type it, and then type the full word resume like so, and you would then, that would then find out that Portage stopped at like the 20th package of the installation order, and it then would continue from that point onwards. So resume again is a very powerful set that you can use as an option to your when you're dealing with emerge. Obviously there is a lot of options, but it's completely totally dependent about what you want emerge to do. I mean, one of the great things about emerge and having things, especially with, like for instance when I use the verbose command, which is AV. I mean, if I was to just, let's say for instance, just put in the options of ask verbose gimp, you would see what it comes out with, and as a good thing we have the output ideas here, which has gone, which basically tells you what the different abbreviations, and as you'll see when the output on my screen actually comes out, and you'll see what the options on an actual package on the system actually says. Excuse me, just taking a quick drink of coffee. And as you can see, if you have any doubts about what things are, like for instance, if a package is blocked, you will see the B on this capital B put here, which basically means that the package is blocked for whatever reason, whether it could be a circular dependency, as I mentioned earlier, which are quite complicated, sometimes can be quite difficult. Other areas where you've got the N here, which basically means it's a new package, so it's been, it's newly installed, it's not been installed on the system. Now as you can see, we've outputted here from GIMP, and as you can see, it's now asked me whether I want to merge these packages or not. If you do not put this A here to ask you about this, it's not going to ask you whether you want to emerge them or not. So it would basically just go ahead and start emerging it. In my case, it's got a R. If you can actually see, we've got a little R here, a yellow R. Now this yellow R actually means that it's going to be rebuilt. So it's already been installed on the system and it's going to be rebuilt. Now there is other R's on the system, such as a little R here, which, as I say, as you can see here, the R symbol indicates the subslot change. But you also have a red R when it's sometimes red, which basically means that it's restricted, or it has some form of restriction to it, a fetch restriction or something like that. But you can also tell that from, you have these little stars, and as you can see, it's quite tells you that the star symbol is displayed in the order indicated that version 2.2 alpha 6 is masked by a missing keyword. So this gives you the clues as to what you can do. Obviously you'll see this a lot in some cases, like for instance if you install Blender, certain packages of Blender are unstable, and you'll see the sort of approximation sign. This obviously means it's unstable, missing keywords, and this means that the actual package is masked, which means that you either got to unmask the package or find another way around installing what it is you want to install without having to unmask a package that's been masked. Either you've masked on the system or has been masked by upstream. So you also have license restrictions, which can also come up when you have a package restricted, because certain licenses you have to accept and say, yes, I agree to these licenses and so on and so forth. In fact, Java is one of them, which is why I don't use Java. I use ICE-T instead, which has actually come quite well of age now, and works virtually seamlessly in as a replacement to any of the Oracle released binary junk. But if you do want, or you do have to, or you do want to compile the binary Java, I know for a fact that you would have to do that if you are compiling, or you're going to build the Android source code or the Android SDK. You have to use the Sun Java version 6. Not the Oracle version, which is the version 7, but you have to use the version 6, which has a lot of security vulnerabilities. But to do that, you obviously have to accept the license. So you have to use the package accept licenses, which is another file, much like package keywords, package use, package mask, package unmask, and so on and so forth, which we've covered in previous videos. I don't think it's worth covering the licenses file, because it's very rarely used, unless you really want to install, like Java and so on and so forth. But that's easy enough for you to do, and find out, from the the portage manual pages, basically, to do that. But as you can see with the verbose outputs, now I don't want to rebuild GIMP, there's nothing new there, but as you can see how the A and the V has outputted things. The A has obviously asked me whether I want to continue or not. V has given me the verbose output, and the verbose output gives me each package, whether it's being rebuilt, whether it's new, whether it's going to be installed, anything like that. And obviously another common one which I see a lot is the F, which is the fetch restriction. When you have an F here instead of an R or whatever, everything works perfectly. Everything else is fine, but you have an F. The fetch restriction basically means that the Gentoo servers are not allowed to hold the code or the binary on their servers. Again, this is another big problem with Oracle's Java. They will not allow anybody else to have their binary stored on another server. You have to actually go to Oracle's own website and then download it from their own web server system. You can't. Nobody can get it from anywhere else. They won't allow you. So a fetch restriction would be another thing that you would see exactly on a Java package, and you would have to download it yourself, put it into your local portage on your hard drive, into the local folders for it to see it. And then obviously the F would change, and so on and so forth, because it would then detect the tarball package or whatever it is that the package format comes in. And that's basically all there is to emerge. What I do want to cover is the final one, which is also an important one, which is the pretend command. Now, ask is useless here, and it will complain if I put an A here and then I type in GIMP. Emerge is going to pump out, and it's going to say, well, A and P can't work together, or it should do, or it used to, but it's because, well, why would you ask to emerge it when you're telling it to pretend? It doesn't actually error to me, but you know, the point here is that pretend, what it means is basically do everything as if it is going to be emerged or going to be compiled and installed, but just pretend that that's doing it. And now this is handy if you want to check on options, what the use flags are, what the dependencies it's going to be pulling in is, and so on and so forth, like this. If you put ask, or you use the A instead of the P, what you'll get is you'll get the output, and then it'll ask you, and then obviously you can just say no at the end, rather than say yes. Rather than with P, it would just not install anything. It would just give you the output, and you won't have the option to say yes or no. So it depends what you want, you know, emerge to do. You can do it in the different ways that you want. Depends what you're wanting to tell emerge to do. But basically, I think that pretty much covers the most of everything that you really need to know about emerge. You know, obviously you as you can see on the man page down here, we've got backtracking, which sometimes this increases when you've got circular dependencies. Again, you know, they can be complex, and is good for another video. We've got obviously the keywords. We've obviously covered these, you know, with the, you know, package keywords, accepted keywords, and so on and so forth. Accepted certain keywords or whatever is considered like the architecture. For instance, if you're running AMD 64, your accepted keywords are going to be AMD 64. Other things we just spoke about with licenses, which is the accept licenses. Again, you can look into doing that with package licenses, which is, it's listed here, which is in your etc portage package.license, very much like your keywords and package.use. So you can put the accept license for packages and so on and so forth. In many cases, that'll be Java if you want to install Oracle's or Sun's Java 6 or 7. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's the skip first is another one that's used quite a lot. I do tend to use that sometimes quite a lot. Sometimes when you have a broken package and you're like, oh my goodness gracious me, I need to get past that package, continue with the rest of the rebuilding the system, and then come back to that package later when I've got a bit more time. That's what you can do when when a package is broken. Instead of using resume like we spoke about earlier, you can then put skip first at the end, and that would mean that that package that it broke on is the next package that you're going to resume. So you would put in emerge, oops daisies, let's emerge hyphen resume, and then not resume, and then we would put hyphen skip first. Now what that would do, it would resume from the last position, but it would skip the broken package and then continue to compile the rest. Now, other packages may break because that package may have depended, or the package afterwards may have depended on that package that failed. If that's the case, there's nothing much more that you can do, but actually fix the problem there, and then to continue with your system update and compilation. So as you can see, by manipulating the options and everything on the command line on the emerge, we can do very powerful things to the different elements of what we want installed and how we can manage our packages, what we don't want to be enabled in the packages, for instance remote desktop or you know, remote terminal or telnet. You know, anything like that we can disable, and obviously as we spoke about in the use flags, we would basically use a minus in front of the use flag to actually disable that, and then obviously emerge will handle the rest. again, it's this way, as I say, if you were to bookmark this page in your tool in your toolbar, your Firefox or whatever browser it is that you use, toolbar, you can then go back to it all the time. And obviously, it's the man page, or as we call it, it's the manual page, but man page of Emerge. And you can come back and you can refresh your memories on exactly what the letters that pop up here in the section of the output from Emerge can tell you. And obviously, a capital letter, as we've discussed, of N would be that it's new, not installed yet. S would be a new slot. Slots. Yeah, you can. If you want to look into slots, then you can do. But basically, it's just like allocated slots, so that you can have two versions of the same application, and they're just occupied in different slots. Some applications cannot be installed at the same time, which is why you end up with other things like circular dependencies and so on and so forth. But this is what slots are, where you can have like Python 2.7 and Python 3.3 installed at the same time, for instance, hypothetically speaking. The U basically means that the package is updating. You've got a newer version. You will have a D. Now, the D doesn't come up on its own. You will have the U, and then the D would be directly after, right next to the U. That would be like an update downgrade, it basically states for if you've masked, or a version has become unstable and you've masked it, or it has been masked to be downgraded to the lower version, which works because somebody broke the up versions. There's the little r here, which is to reinstall for some reasons. The R, which is replacing, re-emerging, or as I sometimes call it, rebuilding the application, rebuilding and reinstalling. The F, as we spoke about, is the fetch restriction, and you've got to manually download it. Hence, for instance, like with Java, go to the Java's website, download it, and put it into your portage, bloody hellfire, it must have pork on the mind. Put it into your portage directory. The small f is fetch restricted, which basically means that you've already done the above, and it's already downloaded, and it's basically indicating you that you've put it into portage, and it's obviously fetch restricted, but it's going to be installed because you've downloaded it. I is interactive, which means that you've got to accept a license or something like that. It's going to interactively ask you a question on its installation. So if you disappear from the system for an hour or so, it's probably going to get to that package, and it's going to sit there waiting for you to input something. And you're going to come back and go, bleed, no, okay, I've been away, and it's like, that was 3/4 of an hour of build time that has now been wasted because it's asking you. So that's a very good feature of knowing it before you disappear and let your system continue its compile. B is obviously, as we've talked about, which is blocked, which is like unresolved conflicts, circular dependencies, anything like that. The little b is blocked by another package, but what you'll see with a little b is it'll come up in blue. But what Emerge is going to do is probably uninstall that version to install the new. So it's going to do that automatically, and it's going to resolve itself automatically without you having to do anything. When you get a capital B, it means that you've got to resolve it yourself, and most likely you probably have to actually uninstall the older versions for the newer versions to be installed, because Emerge can't do it automatically. So it's a good thing to keep this as bookmarked, so that you know what your portage manager of Emerge is actually doing. I think we have pretty much covered everything. One thing that is very handy, which I will just close a bit just before I close, is a command that we put in on the side here called keep going. So for instance, if you do want to disappear and you're going, okay, I want to do the entire update and let it all run, the whole world thing, maybe even you're gonna do an empty tree, or it's just an update, whatever it is. You can use the command keep hyphen going. Now, keep going, what this does is very useful, because if you go away from the system and you're going to be away for, let's say, 3-4 hours, and you want the system to build the applications, do its update, if it fails at some point and it bunks out, and you know it can't install that package, then it's going to sit there. And if that was an hour into it and you're away for 6 hours, then you know you've literally 5 hours has been wasted with the system sitting there not compiling anything or building any of the applications. What keep going does is exactly what it says. It goes, oh well, that one failed, well, we'll tell them at the end, and then it will just jump over it and continue compiling everything else until the next error, and then so on and so forth. And then when you come back to your system after 6 hours, if there was an error to there, you'll see it on the screen, it'll output it, but it carried on going and compiled everything else. Very, very, very handy, very useful command for basically set it and forget it, as one would put. And that's about it. That is pretty much covers virtually all of the basic to moderate, even some of the advanced features of your portage manager of Emerge. So I'll close on that one and just give a little bit of a, how can I put it, helpful advice on using GUI, or graphical user interface, you know, inverted commas, GUI type portage managers. There is a portage manager for Gentoo, a GUI version, which is called Porthole. I, as a beginner, or anybody as a beginner, or anybody even as an advanced user, I really wouldn't advise them to use Porthole. I've had a lot of problems with even just experimenting with Porthole. It does output a lot on the screen, but it requires you to really set it up correctly. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think it's more complicated setting up Porthole to your architecture and so on and so forth. And you know, even trying to backtrack your bugs or anything that's broke, that didn't compile properly or continue properly with, as I say, with Porthole. It may be because, you know, I've used Gentoo for so many years and I'm so used to the command line that you know the GUI just doesn't sort of fit with me. I wouldn't advise any newcomers to start using the GUI. I would use the traditional method of the command line interface and Emerge itself in the command line interface, because you can see what it's doing, you know what's going on, and you can actually get your finger on the errors or problems when they arise. You know, I'm not saying Porthole is bad. I'm just saying it needs a lot more work done to it for it to become a good graphical user interface, compiling, emerging sort of thing. It's worthwhile. I wouldn't stop anybody from going and having a look at it and play with it. You know, I did, but be prepared that it may break your system. And it may cause all sorts of weird and wonderful things, which may take you several hours to have to reverse the problems it caused and fix your system and things like that. So, you know, you've got to start on the command line interface, get good at that, and if you're able to fix everything that way, then yes, play with Porthole, and then obviously you can fix where if it breaks anything, you can fix it. If it works perfectly fine for you and it does everything you want it to do, and you don't have any problems with it, well then, you know, hey, brilliant, you know, that's good for you. It's just, I don't know, as I say, it's because I guess I am just an old faggot or whatever that likes the terminal and command line interface. You know, it's just me. You know, but you know, everybody to their own. That's all I gotta say. But you know, anyway, on that note, I shall leave you to it, my good YouTubers. I hope this video has given you the information you need to really take control of your computer system and take your freedom of computing to the next level. And yeah, have fun, because that's generally what it's all about. You know, freedom gives you fun. Fun is, you know, from freedom and the fact that you can tinker and play and do what you want, whichever way you want, without harming anybody else, is what it's all about. And that's generally what the Gentoo software and you know, this whole, you know, lot of you know, Gentoo Linux and everything is all about. So yeah, have fun, my good YouTubers. Enjoy, and I shall catch you up soon in some further videos. Cheers, thank you, take care, thanks a lot, bye bye.